Hello. My name is Felix. If you guys don't know, I'm from Ledger. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Do have one of my colleagues in the chat as well, seeing if they can answer anything else too. First things that I always mention is that please don't give out your 24 words and don't sign any transactions that you don't trust. And basically, I'll just go ahead and get started and go from there. And we'll see how we go. You see, you've got Ledger Live open up at the moment, but let's go. So we got Mr. Higuris, we got Mr. Dino, Brooklyn State of Mind, all mentioning hello. And so, hello guys. I do have another interesting one here. When will the Fed fall? From Arpain. Good morning to you too. Fortunately, I can't give you any kind of advice like that. That'd be, I don't know, I'd be a wizard in that case. But yeah, that'd be an interesting one to see if you can bet on or something. But here we go. We've got Sonji Henderson. We've got why does the correct amount come up so late? I'm assuming you might mean with regards to the amount of token that you might have. I might need to get a little more detail with regards to that one there, Sonji. Would you be meaning in particular the amount of assets, so like the actual value, the transactions are not being confirmed, something like that? We might see if we can try to give you a hand with that one. Hello, Mr. Dino from San Diego, Cali, Brooklyn State of Mind. Also, you've got this question here. You've mentioned why does your ledger keep saying that your battery is disconnected? It's been happening since you purchased it 2 years ago. So one thing that I would think about in that case is that there could be a potential issue on the hardware side. That is definitely something that I would recommend that you'd try to get a hold of us for, and we'll see if we can try to give you a hand from there. That way, we normally grab your what is it called? We normally try to grab your order ID and see if we can try and give you a hand with that one in particular. So just so you can potentially get a new device or something like that, so we can send you out one that's working properly. Next up, we had Ron Hart. I'm ready. Let's go. Good morning, GM as well. And Higuris, you've also asked when will we add more support in Ledger Live for Sia Coin. One thing that I'd also have to mention is that we wouldn't really be able to give any timeframes in particular. Definitely something that I'll jot down right now, actually, just so you guys can get a better idea. Just so we can actually get a better idea on our side about what kind of things you guys want in particular. So make sure to write that down. Next up, we had Tracy Lin. You've mentioned you own XRP, XLM, Doge, and Shiba. You've been able to load accounts in Ledger Live for Ethereum, Stellar, XRP, and you got the message out of space. And you can't load any more accounts. Is that possible? So one thing to mention is that you wouldn't be stopped from loading accounts in particular unless it's space on your hard drive, but I really doubt that's the specific issue here. What I would suspect is that the message that you're out of space is with regards to the amount of space that you have on your device. Now, one thing that I would actually mention, I'll just go into my instance of Ledger Live here, and I'll unlock it so you can see, is that what you might be seeing the message for is the space that's available on your device itself, right? So with that being said, you can actually install and uninstall apps as much as you'd like. And in that way, you can manage more accounts. So what you might be missing here is what is the last one: Stellar, Ethereum, Doge, Shiba, whatever accounts that you need to add, whatever accounts that you need to add. Yes, you can uninstall apps that you might not be using. So for example, I have a Ledger Nano S. Let's say I have an S Plus, but let's say I have a Ledger Nano S, and I want to now manage something else. Yes, Kusama. I can't install this, you can see here, because I don't have enough storage. What I can do is go to the installed apps, and I can just uninstall something that I might not be using. That way, I can free up enough space, and you can check the space up here. Free up enough space so that when I go back to the app catalog, I can then go about and then add and install the corresponding application. I always think about the applications not as, holding your actual assets or anything like that, not even holding your recovery phrase, but more as a way for the Ledger device to actually understand how to interact with the chain, how to sign transactions for a particular network or chain, for example. So that's more of how I think about it, and uninstalling and reinstalling applications won't actually affect the accounts. So let's say I know I use Bitcoin. So let's say it's right up the top. I'll just go up to Bitcoin here. If I uninstall this, I know that I had a Bitcoin account there previously, and if I wait for this to uninstall, I can go back onto my instance of Ledger Live, and my Bitcoin account will still be there. If I want to interact with things going forward, yes, I'll still need to reinstall it, but shouldn't be an issue with that at all. So hopefully that answers your question there, Tracy. Totally okay. I know it is annoying, but it's totally okay to install and uninstall apps as you might need them, and then that way you can actually manage everything accordingly. All right, let's keep going. Next question that I have is from Besna, that you got a booting 1% error in a loop, and you can't actually access anything within your Ledger device, or I'm assuming Ledger Live. It's definitely something I might recommend getting a hold of us for. One thing that would come to mind that we'd normally recommend is there's a repair function that you might need to do. Generally, this is what we'd generally be recommending. There might be something in particular that we might need more information from you for, but you can search that up on our help center if you need there, Vesna, and hopefully that gets you through the problem. If not, you can always try to get a hold of us, and we can see what we can do for you as well. Hello, Mustafa, as well. I know you've mentioned when all the Ledger stacks be available. Definitely something you can keep an eye out for, but I don't have any more specific time frames with regards to that. I know that there was a little bit of a delay if you've pre-ordered the device at all. It would have been something that we would have mentioned to you as well. We just want to make sure that we have the best product out for you guys in particular. So don't have a specific time frame as opposed to the exact date when, but definitely keep an eye out on Twitter, on Instagram, where we have actual accounts, and we can try to let you guys know ASAP when we have that in particular. So sorry I couldn't be more specific there, Mustafa. I know I do recognize your name. Hopefully we'll be able to get you more information in the future. Sanji, you've got another question as well. You mentioned on other exchanges. Now, I want to bear in mind that we're not an exchange, but I will continue as well. The amounts, so the trade amounts come up in real time, but in Ledger it does not. Right. Okay. So that would be with regards to what you mentioned about why the correct amounts come up so late. And because we're not an exchange, right? We're not just some database that would necessarily, change the amount that you would have and then have that be able to appear instantly for you. All right. So when you make a transaction on chain, you would first have that signed by your Ledger device, and then you would send that and broadcast that transaction out onto a network, onto a chain to see for nodes to be able to confirm that it is a valid transaction and then add it onto the blockchain. That can take time, right? And that is incentivized for, at least let's say in particular with Ethereum, let's say that the transactions are incentivized to be attached to the chain with the fee that you pay. So if you'd want it to, let's say appear instantly, it wouldn't be as quick as a database for an exchange. But with that being said, you can increase the fee that you pay to be able to include your transaction on chain. However, these are all separate miners and things like that, and so that's why you would need to give them this incentivization to be able to include it. So they are different things. Exchanges are totally different entities as a whole than what Ledger is. Ledger would be providing you, Ledger Live as a way to interact with your wallet. You can actually use other wallets and interfaces like MetaMask, for example, Rabby. For other chains, it might be Eternal or Soulflare and things like that. So it doesn't exactly work in the way that it would appear instantly in nearly any circumstance. So fortunately, if that was their way, then someone would have a killer network. In any case, if you have any more questions about that, Sonji, definitely let me know. I know it's not necessarily what you might have been hoping for, but definitely something that we wouldn't be able to necessarily have appear instantly for you, unless you do increase it to like half the price of your transaction. Not that you need to or anything. I wouldn't recommend doing that at all as well. You don't get that much benefit. Now, next question we've got from Michael Hartwick. You've mentioned, will we be able to buy from Coinbase on Ledger Live? Not something that I'd expect to have as a feature. You can use the buy function here, or you can go into the Discover tab. There's also, where is it? I think they might have moved it, but there should have been a Binance. There it is. Binance to be able to buy assets as well. So totally different ways that you can buy. I don't have any time frame for Coinbase, but it's definitely something we can ask about as well going forward. 007 Bond, you mentioned that when you're staking Matic through the Stader Polygon app, so that's this one here, how safe are my tokens? Do they leave my Ledger Live wallet? So remember, Ledger Live isn't something that the assets wouldn't be on Ledger Live. They'd be on chain, and it's just your recovery phrase that's managing your public-private key pair. My understanding of the canonical staking, so staking with regards to how a Polygon originally did it with their contract, would be that you would send the Polygon to the contract. The contract holds the tokens to secure the network, secure the Polygon Matic network on Ethereum, on the Ethereum chain. So they actually leave your actual address, but what you would get is you would get a kind of placeholder in return to say that, hey, you have a certain amount to be able to redeem at a later date in particular. So with regards to how safe it is safe as any other token might be, generally speaking. You can definitely go, for example, let me see if I can bring it up. I don't know if I can ST-ETH, Etherscan. I don't know if this will come up with it exactly. Oh, no, it's not ST-ETH. ST-Matic is what I'm looking for. But essentially, you can double check the actual token code if you'd like, and just make sure that it's all up to what you'd like it to be. But they do leave your actual address to be stored on chain at their staking contract, and from there you can actually view your assets. With Stader in particular, it should be relatively similar. I'm just double checking now. Yes, you get Matic X, and yeah, there'll be a pretty similar methodology. And I can even see the Polygon scan contract here. So instead of staking on Ethereum, you'd stake on Polygon, and I'm assuming there's some backend there that they're doing to do this in particular. So you would still get, this liquid staking token in return, and it would be as secure as any other token potentially. So I know I waffled a bit there, 007. Feels cool to say that. But hopefully that kind of answers your question. They do leave your wallet, but it is as safe and secure as any token you might expect to be. So see, you've answered that a couple times, but yeah, hopefully we can get you through that in particular. Now, next, after 007, I had Shaolin. You mentioned, why do you need to have Ledger Stacks devices magnetically connect together? I don't know that there's a need for them to connect together. I think the designers thought it would be cool, if I'm frank, and I did see the tweet as well, but it's another way for you to keep them together. And my understanding is that they want to have specific functionality that I actually cannot talk about to work with the connection, magnetic connection. So definitely something to keep an eye out on. I think they do have some kind of thoughts about how to integrate this in particular. But if I could tell you more, I definitely would. But that is my understanding so far, as best as I can tell. Now, RH, you've mentioned, how do I use the extension? I think one of the best places to actually double check that, you can just go to extension. I think Dan, the guy in the in our chat right now, actually has actually provided video instructions as to how to use it if you'd prefer a video form, and you can also find it on our Help Center about how to install it and everything like that. But your next question, you mentioned, can anyone track my activities through the serial number of your device? No. Can anyone track your activities through your on-chain transactions? Yes. So it's not, if you're worried about people tracking you, you can see people's transactions on-chain. This is something that I think maybe quite a few people might miss, but you can see everyone's transactions on a lot of chains. Like I've just picked up this random address that we were talking about Matic X before, and you can see they're making multiple transactions. So it's totally something that you can track. It's not, but now remember, it's not anonymous, it's pseudonymous. So I don't know this person's name. I don't know who this is necessarily. It's about the connection. So if someone were to deposit this into a centralized exchange, for example, then some person at that exchange might be able to see, hey, this exchange is linked to this person's identity through KYC. So it is possible to track what individual addresses do, but it doesn't mean anyone can track what who you are in particular or anything like that. So nothing to do with the serial number of the device. Now, Mehmet, you've mentioned you wanted to know if it's possible to add the BEP20 token, GPT. I'll make sure to jot it down. No promises as to whether or not it will be added in particular, but definitely something I'll make sure to pop in there for you. Next up, Ron Hart, morning. Good morning to you, mate. So RH, yeah, this looks like Dan actually mentioned that as well. William, you also have a question. Please, you have a Sol account, but you can't synchronize. You tried to update Ledger Live, the Solana app, and you cleared the cache, but nothing works. Still, I can send Solana, but you can't stake. My first question to you, William, is are you trying to stake the maximum amount? I know it's an issue that has been happening quite recently, and one of the things that you would want to do is leave some Solana at the address when you stake. It might come up with that the internet is down, for example. That might be what you're experiencing. So based on the symptoms that you've mentioned, that's the first thing that I'd think of there. So William, if you're able to try and stake without putting in the maximum amount, maybe leave 0.1, maybe leave 1, whatever you feel comfortable with, you should be able to stake from there. But I know that there should be an upcoming fix soon that should just fix that and makes sure that you leave enough in your account. Sonji, I'm not talking about when you first purchased. This is when it has been in there a while. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure what you'd be talking about there, Sonji. I might need to get maybe some screenshots. Maybe it's best that you get a hold of us, support.ledger.com. I think that way maybe we can actually try to have a chat with you, maybe get some screenshots, because that's the first thing that I think of. But being that I'm not really able to fully understand what you're saying there, we can see what we can do to give you a hand, see if we can explain what might be happening there in particular, Sonji. RH, continue. You should do something about the huge spike in the portfolio each time you deposit, because you can't track it properly. So the thing about the portfolio, let's say here, when you deposit it, yeah, there is a huge track. What are you trying to track? Oops, I hit the market tab. So is there a spike and it goes down? Would that mean that you're also transferring funds out as well? I might need more information about the spike in portfolio in particular. I know you mentioned that you're also having some other issues as well. You've just gone on here. What are the names of the account and only works on ETH and Matic right now? What about the names of the account and only works on RH? I'll keep reading because you might have more information there. I had seen a video the day it was released. I will check thanks, and your website supported crypto isn't working. Supported crypto isn't working. Let's have a look. So a bunch of stuff there. Let's see if we can try and answer as many questions as we can. Should be working as far as I can see. Ethereum, yeah. It might be something that I might not be missing. Maybe it is definitely confusing. There's one thing that I've tried to mention is that, okay, if all these are supported in Ledger Live, but if we go to what am I thinking? VET isn't supported. So remember, it's not supported in Ledger Live, but you'd have to use Sync. If that's what you mean, I maybe throwing a dart here at a dartboard blind, but that's the first thing that I think of. There is a thing that you can use though, RH, that if you want to find out about what's supported, is, let me see if I can grab it from off screen, is what is called our asset list. Boom, 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 boom. Let's see if I can get that up. Boom. Sorry, and essentially it's just a list of all of the contracts, the tickers that we would use. It's on our GitHub. You can search under here. It's under the apps, Ledger Live Desktop, and it's under crypto assets. It's just a markdown file that you can use to actually have a look at all of the supported tokens. Just so you guys are aware, it's totally, because Ledger Live is open source, something you can use there. But I know you had More questions here. Supported crypto link. Click on a link. It says only ETH. Okay, not what happening for me. We might need to get some more details from your RH because yeah, definitely was working for me. Now you mentioned depositing crypto into Ledger. There's a spike. Some other methods would be better to look long term. I'm trying to, and some other method would be better to look long term. I'm not 100% sure what you mean. In particular, the spike would be because yes, you deposit funds into your account, and then the balance also increases. So definitely, I think maybe what you would be best is get a hold of us. I think you might have done that before, RH. Maybe write a ticket to us, and then we can actually try to discuss with you in particular, so that way you can give us screenshots and things like that as well. Because not something that I'm actually experiencing myself. Maybe it's a bit of a miscommunication there as well. Let's keep going. We've got Arpain. When will you use, or we will use, smart contracts to ensure crypto is not lost? I don't think smart contracts wouldn't work to ensure crypto isn't lost necessarily. One wallet or exchange to wallet. When will we add this for easy mass adoption? Already discussed with Exodus wallet. So I don't think smart contracts really don't work in that way to just make sure they aren't lost, because if you lose your entropy, so if you lose your recovery phrase or your private key, then there's nothing any smart contract can necessarily do to make sure it isn't lost. Now, with that being said, it doesn't mean that there's other ways to mitigate losses with smart contracts. So if you've heard about account abstraction, ERC 4337, if I remember the numbers correctly, there are ways that you can mitigate, in particular ways that you can spend funds. So that kind of thing is possible, and definitely something we've been looking on the horizon. But just to make sure it isn't lost flat out wouldn't be something that's necessarily possible. Now, with that being said, you've mentioned one wallet or exchange to wallet. I'm not sure if you can go into more detail there, but it's definitely something that I think mass adoption would benefit from, ERC 4337 and everything like that. You've also just added, does support delete all identified accounts through tech support issues? We do delete all, we do actually black out or like censor all personal identifying information, just so you're aware. But you can actually go onto our website and request information from us, or request that it will be deleted, in particular, Arpain. So definitely something you can do. It's not through us via email, but let me just double check. It's under privacy ledger in particular, and there's a way to request that you can delete data that's there as well, Arpain. So just so you're aware. Boom. There is a way. Obtain, delete, yes. And you can do privacy-request.ledger.ledger.com. So that's where you would do that there, just so you're aware. All right, let's keep going. There we go. Mehmet, you mentioned you had a Ledger Nano X. With regards to your first question, Mehmet, it wouldn't be relevant for adding tokens in particular, unless you mentioned something previously. When you're adding BEP20 tokens, doesn't matter what device you're using, just to make sure that you have the application on your device, and then that way you can use that device to sign transactions for an address. Not sure if that's what that means, or if you've written something else in particular. Let's keep going. You got Milan. You said, how do you log off from a Ledger device at the end of the day when we finish? Do we push some buttons or plug off, or just unplug it? You would just unplug it in most cases. If you've got a Ledger Nano X, one thing you might have to do is unplug it and then turn it off, because it does have a battery and it would be turned on. So woken by the USB connection when you plug it in. So if you are just using a Ledger Nano X, just unplug it and then turn it off. If you are using a device without a battery, so Ledger Nano S Plus, Ledger Nano S, you can just unplug it and that's fine. Wouldn't necessarily recommend doing it when you're, doing a firmware upgrade, if you're installing an application or anything, but it's not going to make you lose your assets, for example, because that's what the recovery phrase would be there for. And in that case, you'd be able to restore your device with an existing recovery phrase to be able to access the same accounts going forward. Sonji, you mentioned when the stock goes up, for example, it doesn't show up till much later, not when first purchased. I would imagine you're talking about these prices in particular. Let's see. I mean, if I go to TradingView, for example, I've got CMC up. A little bit of a difference there, but I got 28,130 for Bitcoin, and that looks like it's just adjusted there. Generally speaking, if you're having issues with getting information from infrastructure or something like that, I might instantly think of potential networking connection issues. So what do I mean by that? Is that essentially Ledger Live has to go and ask our infrastructure or some form of API, say, hey, I want to get a certain amount of information. Might do that at a specific interval. It might also do that. It might not be able to do that as well if you're running on some kind of restricted network. That would be the first couple of things that I'd think of that might be stopping you. I'm not saying that's the exact case here, Sonji, but the first things I think of in particular. Always, of course, you're not going to have something along the likes of an exchange where you have up to the minute price changes, because that's not how Ledger Live would necessarily work. Even when you're making an exchange, let's say if I pop back over and I go through to Paraswap or 1inch, some kind of decentralized exchange, it would then be the time where it would be looking specifically for the price at that specific time. So not really. I can definitely request that it maybe pulls that market data a little bit quicker, for example. But I personally, I actually don't use this to track intraday prices. I would actually use this just as a quick glance in particular, which is what I think the developers were intending for. But I'll definitely make sure to jot that down, because obviously we want to give you guys what you guys want, and hopefully more things that I can mention to them, the better. So let's jot that down. Market price refresh rate. Seems okay on my end, but again, I'll make sure, see if we can test it out with a VPN or something, or see if it's something that's happening across the board. So it's about halfway, guys. I don't know if you guys still had any other questions. We'll try and get these answered as best we can on stream. Please pop them in the chat. We have my colleague also trying to answer questions as well, and we can try and get any issues solved. I know RH, you had some pretty in-depth questions there. We can definitely try and look at that for you. In particular, just even mention my name. And if you actually finish raising the case now, you can pop it into chat, the case number, and that way I'll actually pick it up. And then we can go from there as well. Now, with that being said, keep chatting away. If you guys, again, please just pop your questions into chat. We'll try and answer them as we go through. Let's go from there. Now, one of the things that I think we kind of touched on, maybe I'll talk about now, would be that the assets that you're holding, or the assets that you see in Ledger Live, aren't actually on the device. They're actually on chain. One of my favorite articles is going to be this Ledger Academy article that mentions, what it is that the Ledger device holds, which is, your private keys, which are derived from the recovery phrase. In most instances, I kind of use those interchangeably, even though that's technically not correct at all. Just to, when I'm introducing people to the idea, but essentially that it's your recovery phrase that's always on the device, never leaves the device. I know people have asked before about trying to get those off a device, which we would we don't even have the option to do so. And the reason for that is to make sure it is secure, to make sure it is as secure as possible. Right. So with that being said, when you want to go and sign a transaction, you would go using any wallet interface. So that would be, for example, Ledger Live. It could be MetaMask, it could be Rabby, something like that. And you can use that to ask the Ledger device to sign a transaction in particular. And through that way, you can go and sign the transaction. Make sure you confirm everything on the device itself. And what I mean by that, and what I always try to say with regards to that, is that you make sure everything's the same. You make sure the amount you're sending is the same. You'll make sure that your contract you're interacting with is the same. And that way, with your trusted screen on your device that you are interacting with the same contract. You're not being phished or anything like that. All right. Just always try to mention that in particular. We have 2 more questions, it seems, come up. You've mentioned OJ. So OJ, you mentioned when trying to sync with Ledger Live to mobile, the instructions say to tap on the plus in amounts. The plus sign is not there. You managed to perform the sync. The only update needed is Solana balance, which is ticked. But when I press import, it does not show on my mobile ledger. There would be, let me check here. Let's have a look. I don't want you guys to add my account necessarily, but I don't think there is a widespread outage at the moment. I'm just checking the actual plus. The instructions say to tap plus on plus sign in. I'm just seeing now what I can't always remember exactly what would be seen. So sorry about that, bear with me. But generally speaking, the QR codes carry the data for Ledger Live to actually add the account in particular, basically just the public key and address. And then that way Ledger Live knows what to be looking for in particular. Let's have a look, but it's you don't see the plus icon. Boom, counts. And while I do that, I can read your other question there. So ignore the first question as I managed to do it, but the issue with Solana still remains. Right. I do know that there is an ongoing issue with adding accounts in particular in Ledger, with Solana in particular. I know the infrastructure is under quite a bit of pressure. With that being said, though, you should be able to use other wallets. So kind of what I was saying about your recovery phrase always being on the device. You can actually go, I've got a couple here, but for example, you could use Phantom. Solflare is another wallet that you can use to actually manage your Ledger addresses. One thing I'd mention though is that when you do connect, just to make sure that you're using the Ledger Live derivation path, because you might get a different address. So just in the meantime, just to give you a bit of a workaround there, OJ, you can use Phantom, Solflare, something like that, just to make sure you connect your hardware wallet and not to into your recovery phrase. And I know that the devs are already looking at trying to get that fixed up. in terms of adding accounts, because it's actually happening for me as well, in terms of being able to add Solana accounts as well. So that's why, I've got Phantom here, able to manage any Solana assets if I need to. So sorry about the inconvenience. I know it's a pain to potentially use other wallets, but definitely something that I actually do as well on a pretty daily basis, pretty much daily basis. All right. XMark Rider, you mentioned logging off the Ledger Nano X when you've completed a transaction used to be simple till you did the update. So see someone else asked the question. Also, haven't heard your response yet. So you mean that when you've completed a transaction, so you used to be simple, what is happening for you in particular that would be different? Because remember, you don't need to necessarily do anything after. Once you sign a transaction, you're all good. The transaction has been sent from your device to Ledger Live, and from Ledger Live, it would be broadcast onto a node to be gossiped to other nodes, right? And so once you've signed the transaction, there's actually nothing you need to do. I mean, for me, if I have my Ledger Nano X, I actually just unplug it. It goes back onto the pin screen and I just turn it off. Generally speaking, you shouldn't need to do anything else. I know there's a lot more screens that come up if you maybe have enabled debug mode or something like that. So let's keep going. Sorry I didn't answer that question. I'm not sure if I saw any question above that was like that with, in particular, XMark Rider. But yeah, you shouldn't need to complete anything after you've completed a transaction. It says hold both buttons for 3 seconds or more and turn off the device. Yes, that is normal. That would have been the same as per previously as well. But you also had another question about XDC. Will a ledger add XDC to Ledger Live so we can transfer to it? Remember, you can transfer to Ledger Live, or rather your Ledger managed addresses without Ledger Live. At the moment, if I remember correctly, you might want to use something like MyCrypto. My Ethereum wallet, if I remember correctly, would support Ledger devices with XDC. So you can still manage the assets. I wouldn't have a time frame or be able to confirm if XDC would be added into Ledger Live to be able to see in that way or anything like that. But definitely something you can do with third-party wallets with your Ledger device in particular. So OJ, you mentioned maybe if you weren't clear. No, should be going through as well. You can see your Solana balance on desktop, but the asset never syncs with a mobile app. So on the desktop, yes, is that what you're saying? Yes, essentially, even adding new accounts in Ledger Live, all other assets are synced, but Solana is nowhere to be seen on my mobile despite being on my desktop app. Yes, so kind of in the same way, I'm having trouble adding new accounts in even on the desktop. So new accounts being added might have a bit of an issue there. That would be what I would be expecting. So that's probably what I think the potential issue is there. But if you want us to delve in further, just mention, like I think I always mention, you can always go to support.ledger.com. You just actually mention my name, that you want to speak to me, have the other agent transfer the ticket over, and we can try and have a look for you. Normally we'll grab the logs. Basically what that will do is see what's added into the account. Normally I'd want to get that for, in this case, your mobile application, and then see what we can find. If anything weird is happening on the back end or anything like that as well. But that would be my expectation, is that there is already a ticket about adding accounts in Ledger Live, mobile and desktop, that is affecting Solana in particular. So if you want us to delve into more detail, definitely do so. Raise a case with us as well. All right. Next up is Cyber, I'm assuming it is. When will we see Casper, KAS, added to Ledger? I can have a look at that as well, but no promises on timeframes, as I always mention, but I'll just double check if it is. Not something I'm directly aware of as well, or anything like that. Might have to be something that you guys, if you guys are part of the developer team or you know someone, if it's its own L1, for example. Let's have a look. Let's use CoinGecko today. So if you wanted to add a particular layer 1, because Ledger is trying to be an open platform, you could have the developers get to a hold of us, and we can try and help you out from there, because yes, it's not a token or anything like that. Now let's pop on to the next question. Got the last 15 minutes here to try and answer as much as I can. I know we've got 2 questions here, Mustafa. I know you asked before, and Niall mentioned when essentially you'd be receiving the Ledger stacks. I don't have any particular time frame for you. I know that now at least you might have received an email with regards to how, with regards to the potential time frames of the Ledger stacks in particular. I don't have any more information, unfortunately. It is definitely something we're trying to work on getting out to you guys in the best form that we can. So not that we don't want to release it and, you know, have it be a shitty product. We want to make sure that we can give you guys the best product that we can. So that's why my understanding is that they wanted to push that and not necessarily have that be available when it wasn't ready. Really sorry about the inconvenience. I totally get it. I mean, if you need more information or if you need to change anything, you might be able to get a hold of us and we can try and have a chat with you from there. A lot of the times, if it's just the stacks, for example, you can actually update the order on your order overview page as well. So you can make changes there too if you need. All right. So let's keep going. Adi, you mentioned how to send a token. Those address fund in Ledger which show third-party wallet, like just like VeChain. Okay, so I think I get it. How would we send assets that are managed with a Ledger device which require a third-party wallet? So it might depend on each wallet, but you would send them with the specific functionality that you might get. So with your example, VeChain. With VeChain, you'd use sync. I don't actually use that in a while. That's not going to work. Sync to VET. But sync wallet, you'd connect your hardware wallet and send it with that in particular. So that's how you'd manage your assets with that one. In fact, if you prefer, you can support, this is what I always do, honestly, is you can actually see more information about how to manage your assets with, for example, in this case, with VeChain, sync to here, you can set passwords, you can make sure the app is ready, but then manage your wallets accordingly, send, receive, whatever it might be, and go from there. Now, let's keep going. Now, you've mentioned, does Ledger support Baby Doge, Niall? I'll have to double check. A lot of Doge lookalikes out there. Feisty Baby. It does on Binance Smart Chain, and there is one on Ethereum as well. So at least on Binance Smart Chain, you'll be able to see the value as well. So that is at least something you can manage. You just need to have a BNB to be able to send and receive those assets as well. All right. Next question would be from Pronto. You mean any estimation for Optimism integration? Unfortunately, don't have any time frame. I wish I could estimate. I would only say pronto, that it would be pronto, ASAP, because it's something I'm definitely looking for as well. Hopefully you already know that you can use like Rabby, Tahoe, MetaMask to be able to access those as well. But yeah, I'll just try and jump at them as best I can, because yeah, definitely something I think a lot of us in the team are really looking forward to. So sorry I couldn't be more specific, not even in terms of a specific month, year, decade, whatever, but I know that they want to do it ASAP. DK, you mentioned you guys are doing a good job, thank you. But there is no time to watch all, and many questions aren't relevant for everybody. It would be amazing if you could add timeline for questions. Definitely something I'll add in as well, because that is something that would make it easier as well. Yeah, totally think that would be great. In other ways, we can also try and potentially separate each particular session for each particular case. I know that Wednesdays, so tomorrow, some of my colleagues actually do a stream on Twitter where they go through the daily news and things like that. We do another AMA on Friday on Twitter, generally speaking, as well as what have we got on Thursday? We do have another live AMA as well. So yeah, 100%. I totally think it's a great idea. I'll probably actually message one of the guys now and see what we can do. And we can try and go from there. But amazing suggestion. So when we add that in, that'll be your suggestion. So thanks heaps for that one, for sure. Only have a couple of minutes left, guys. If you guys want to ask any questions, bit more of a quiet one today. I can always ramble on about general crypto stuff as well. I'm sure you guys have. I don't know if you guys use Twitter, but definitely crazy that we've seen Mr. Musk put his apparently his favorite coin up there, which was an interesting time for everyone. Hopefully, if you guys need any more questions or have any more questions as well, remember you can always come up to support.ledger.com. You can pop them down. You can go into the bottom right here. You actually can't see it because it'll be behind me, but it'll be right here. There'll be a purple button that says contact us, and we can try and help you out with any questions you might have. We have a live chat that's open most of the day, EU and US times in particular. Pronto, you mentioned, can you say something about blind signing? Should we activate it after the operation? Blind signing is, I think someone put it, blind signing is a lot like unsafe sex, right? There are a lot of features that you could utilize when you have blind signing turned on. Now, blind signing is, honestly, if I'm frank, I actually have it on all the time. Now, why is that? It's because I actually am interacting with a lot of contracts that may not be supported. Maybe I'm trying to mess around with some new weird dApp and something like that, right? So honestly, I have it on all the time, but it's not safe. And why is that? Is that when you go and sign a transaction, even let's say when you're sending an ERC20 token, a BEP20 token, whatever it might be, you're actually calling the code that's in that ERC20 token. So if I have a transfer function for a token that says, hey, I want to transfer, but before you transfer, I want to require that the owner of the token has, if the owner of the token is sending more than 5 Felix tokens, for example, then I want to take one token and send it to my address. That's totally possible, and I think people have seen the advent more and more of variable tax on tokens and things like that. So it's totally a thing that is possible, right? So when you call, someone could hide in an approve for all function in there. And if you're blind signing, and if you have to blind sign for these functions, then it could affect the security of your assets, right? So in that way, blind signing is something that I have on a lot. It's not to say that it will immediately make you lose all of your assets, but please be very careful. And I think that's one thing, and that's one thing that I would suggest if you're doing it Ledger Live. One thing you'll know is that you will always, well, generally speaking, have clear signing on the device, and that's important if you want to make sure that, hey, I'm looking at the contract I'm interacting with. I'm looking at the addresses. I'm looking at the values I'm inputting into the transaction, and making sure I am signing it very specifically. So a little bit in depth there, but yeah, I use blind signing a lot. It's really cool. Not really cool, but like it's a really important feature that I need to use. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend everyone do it unless you know exactly what you're signing. Or silo your wallets. Have one wallet, not touch anything, and then have one wallet signing a lot of things, and make sure you can mitigate your losses. Neil Patel, let's keep going. Probably rambled on a bit there. You mentioned how long does the battery last on the Ledger stacks. They are still testing that, and I wouldn't be able to give you any exact amounts, unfortunately. But definitely something that they want to have before they release it. Pronto, you mentioned that I'm funny. Thank you. I need a little bit of a boost in the ego. And thank you. I always want to be useful. So always, if you want to ask any more questions, I'm always here. McLovin, the Irish R&B singer, you've mentioned how many characters am I allowed for the passphrase feature? Generally speaking, up to 100 characters, if I remember correctly. So that would be something that might affect you if you're going to another wallet or something like that. But in this case, I wouldn't normally expect anyone to have more than even 50 characters for your passphrase. So 100, I can actually go in and check that on our support center, but 100 is what I remember right off the top of my head. Boom. While I'm doing that though, I'll read out what Sergio has mentioned. You've got here, hello, you're having trouble signing Sologenic NFT with the Ledger Nano X, and with the support from Sologenic, they've mentioned that the Ledger device hasn't been updated, and so the particular transactions are not passed correctly by the device. One thing I double check, because I know that this was an issue at some point. Let's see. I can definitely raise it internally, Sergio. Bear with me. I'll see if there's anything on the internal knowledge base. NFTs. There we go. In any case, being that Solana's Solana NFTs are not supported, I'm assuming you're using a third-party wallet too. I wouldn't have any time frame for you in any case, but I'll make sure to try and raise this internally. If it hasn't already, that'd be something we need to make sure as well. But thank you for putting that through to us. I'll make sure to send that up the pipe as well. NFT, and I'll check what other potential transactions there are that we might need to support as well. So thanks for the heads up there. But that's just about all the time that I have today. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, please, you can always reach out to us, support.ledger.com. We'll try to answer any questions that you might have there. Otherwise, you can always tune in next week. This week we have Wednesday. We have a stream on Twitter with some of my colleagues going through the news. And then later on YouTube on Thursday, as well as Friday for Twitter Live as well. All right. But thanks again for attending, guys. Please have a good rest of the week. Please, please, please don't share your 24 words and do not sign any transactions you don't trust. And I think finally, stay safe in the markets.